You are listening to Bootstrap Farmer Radio.
Hey, what's up, everybody? We're in Meriden, Connecticut at Trifecta Ecosystems. You get that right?
You got it right.
Good deal. With Spencer Curry. We are on the third floor of a rather old building at an aquaponics facility, and we're just going to talk about all things aquaponics today and what kind of goes into what you guys have going on. So, Spencer Curry, tell us your story.
All right. Thanks, Nick, for having me. Thanks, Brandon. Been looking forward to having this chat. So, where to get started on our story? Our company, Trifecta Ecosystems, we're an aquaponics technology company here based out of Connecticut in Meriden. We got started as just a simple backyard aquaponics farm, kind of quickly moving into a incredibly micro commercial scale. And throughout our early history, we found people were interested in using aquaponics for themselves for a variety of purposes, not always just growing food. We realized through our experience in growing with aquaponics that our real mission was to spread what we'd learned and spread the art form and the science of aquaponics. And that's kind of how Trifecta got to being the technology company it is today.
It's a unique space where we're at here. Give us the history of the building.
Yeah, so we're here at 290 Pratt Street in Meriden. It is an old building, turn of the 20th century, so this is like early 1900s we're talking about. I don't know the initial purpose of the building, but right around World War I, it was transitioned into a ball bearing factory, so heavy industrial use. Floors are 18 inches of pure concrete, so they're pretty sturdy. If you're a history buff, I'm going to rant off a few things. We have original Westinghouse electric boxes, which is pretty awesome if you know the history of electricity. In addition, we also have like original turn of the century General Electric boxes. So like we have the battle of the currents right here in our space, which is always fun. Our steel beams on our ceilings are all Carnegie steel, printed steel.
Is there a Tesla tower anywhere?
I can't disclose that kind of information. But no, it was pretty cool discovering like that kind of stuff. This is history right here. For me, I found it to be very inspiring. These are guys who kick-started major industries. We're talking electricity, steel. These are the people who wrote the beginning of what we call the modern times. I see aquaponics as in a similar early stage state. This is a massive industry waiting to take its place amongst the rest. So I like to work here amongst that kind of inspiration. And kind of to add to that, the actual unit that we're in right now, that we're in an 8,400 square foot unit, and this is where they actually used to build the Stanley Cup for the NHL. So they did all sorts of silversmithing in here. It's just another little piece of history.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Anytime you can take an old space, for instance, my farm used to be a junkyard outside, so we can't go 3 inches before we're hitting old trim and mirrors and reflectors.
Oh my God.
So everything we do is above ground in raised beds. When we built our high tunnel, we built it on a slope and brought in like 4 foot of dirt. So the whole high tunnel is one essential raised bed. Everything else on the inside, which used to be a diesel mechanic shop, we have the NFT channels and our propagation and that kind of thing. So it's nice to take places that are just crap and turn them into something farming related.
Absolutely. I think that's one of the many extremely exciting things about really this newly thriving farming industry of all kinds. This isn't special to just aquaponics, but whether you're doing raised beds or indoor farming of any sort, you open up an entirely new world of arable land. And for the listeners, I'm doing air quotes, we're talking a new form of arable land. These old warehouses, these abandoned junkyards, these are places that you couldn't do traditional farming, but using these new tools, they're all of a sudden productive areas. Yeah. And I think that's one of the coolest and most exciting things we're looking at.
Not only I cannot, but I will not ever discourage anybody from farming any method they want to do, as long as it's safe and healthy and that kind of thing. So
absolutely,
I think there's a space for all of us, and I just want us to kind of focus on that.
Absolutely. We're all farmers, right? We understand the healthy ecosystem is made up of a multitude of players all playing their own role, and I don't think that is any surprise that to feed the world, we're going to need a multitude of different strategies and styles interworking together. Urban farming, working in conjunction with existing suburban and rural farming, is what it's going to take to feed our population moving forward in a healthy, sustainable way that doesn't rob our world of nutrients and, harm our health.
I think farming in an urban environment is one of the ways that people can legitimately and do something about sustainability. Like, you're not going to go rake the ocean by yourself, but you can start a grow box. You can do that one thing. If that offsets just a little bit, hey, that's a start.
It is a start, and it's a nice gateway into actually thinking about your energy use, your food use, your food waste, and it's a simple thing that can have really long-term downstream effects. Just having your basil on your kitchen counter that you clip from, you're valuing fresh local food, and that will propagate through your purchasing decisions, and maybe one day you'll be inspired to grow more than just that. So yeah, I totally agree.
So what you guys have going on here, kind of give us your model, what you guys are trying to accomplish in the long-term goals, because I know you have longer-term goals and what's going on.
Absolutely. So Trifecta Ecosystems is on the mission to create the city that feeds itself. This is our vision of how the food system will be evolving over the next few years. I think that this is actually going to be a relatively rapid transition once it begins to happen. So what that looks like, we want to empower people already living in their community to feed themselves and their communities. We don't want to be the farmers of the world. We want to empower the farmers of the world. So we work a lot right now today with groups we call hidden farmers, people that already use agriculture for their own purposes, but maybe not for commercial purposes. The three common threads we see in our hidden farmer groups are they use agriculture for education, therapeutic purposes, and for skill development and workforce development. So those are kind of the areas that we really focus on. Trifecta has a wide variety of programs in the education space, the therapeutic gardening space, and the skill development space / workforce development. And we package those with our aquaponics systems to provide a higher degree of value to our clients. And so now, for example, these schools with aquaponics systems who are using them in the classroom to teach biology, chemistry, physics, entrepreneurship, engineering, I could go on and on.
Yep.
They're doing all those things. They're getting a world-class education tool, and these kids' lives are changing because of it. And in addition, they're growing healthy food. So
and I think they take that home with them.
They do, yeah. So it depends from case to case. But in some school instances, for example, they're allowed to take the food home. In some, they prep it right there on the spot as part of their class with the teacher oversight. There's a whole ton of different ways, and we're also exploring schools that are interested in commercial farms, how they can roll that food either into their existing cafeteria system or sell it to the community. And instead of selling up here in Connecticut, we sell Munson's chocolates. The kids go out and door to door sell chocolate. Why aren't we selling food produced by the school that way? That's a permanent source of fundraising for every school that employs this program. It's an incredible learning opportunity for the students, and it's something exciting for the teachers, the parents, and the students themselves. So that's sort of what we're approaching, is how can we integrate food production into the community as it already stands. And that's why we call them hidden farmers. They're right there in front of us, but they just need to be unlocked with these new technologies. So that's kind of where we're at today. We're working with a wide variety of different organizations throughout Connecticut, where we install a variety of different aquaponics systems. We're now turning our focus to be really in-depth on the commercial scale, and we're looking at essentially community and employee-owned farms. So we're not talking 100,000 plus square feet indoor farming. We're talking anywhere from 5,000 to 25,000 square feet, where you don't need 10x returns to pay back your VC. You need 4 to 6% profitability, so that as an employee-owned business, everyone can take a bonus at the end of the year and maintain a healthy salary. So that's the model we're looking at, and that's what we're building.
That's one of the most realistic ones I've heard also. So.
I appreciate hearing that because, we're going for it in kind of a vacuum. So it's good to hear other people, knowledgeable in the space kind of back it up.
Aquaponics, I mean, we've had this discussion before privately that there's such a pie in the sky mentality approaching this because it does cover so much in theory and ground. You have your fish and you have all these systems that work together, and it sounds great, but it's really damn hard. And it's especially hard to either raise money, make money, sustain the money. And we talked it very early on in the stages. But if we don't start somewhere, it'll never get off the ground. So kind of give us a little bit of your take on where the industry stands now, how long before it becomes viable.
Absolutely. So I'm going to start with my main thesis, which I'm sure many other aquaponics people out there, maybe some will agree, maybe some will call me mad for saying this on recording. But our kind of thesis is that commercial aquaponics is not there yet. There are certainly places where it's working, but on a wide, rapidly deployable scale, it's just not ready.
Before we go on from that, each one of those is vastly put together different and vastly ran different. Most farms, I mean, you can't really say there's an industry standard anyway, but this particular venture of farming is really not there.
It's in its Wild West stages. There's a wide variety of geniuses in the space and charlatans, and in not necessarily the best proportion, I think. But what is happening is a slow growth towards that expertise and true scientific rigor, which I think is required. Kind of the way we typically describe it is that hydroponics is extremely well worked out. It's a chemical formula. It's typically an abiotic system. You don't need to deal with the chaos of biology quite as much. You set it and forget it to a certain extent.
And holy shit, define chemical.
Yeah,
for everybody right now.
Oh yeah, so I definitely not trying to use a dictionary definition of chemical. What I'm saying is, hydroponics growers for the most part keep their system abiotic. They keep the water free of any pathogens, beneficial or pestilent. And so because of that, you can essentially have these recipes, right? Where tomatoes need X, Y, and Z for their NPK.
And we're talking magnesium, calcium,
exactly.
not plutonium and petroleum.
Absolutely not, no. We're still talking, healthy, safe ways to grow food. I absolutely don't mean to cast aspersions in any direction. Meanwhile, though, aquaponics has that biology component, which is, it's incredibly complex in ways that we don't know what we don't know yet. And so the main issue I believe facing aquaponics as a commercial industry is that lack of quantification of the biology. And I think in order to accelerate the pace at which aquaponics can commercially become viable on a large scale, it all comes down to quantifying that aquaponics.
Is there any organized effort to make that happen? It seems the early aquaponic farms that we all heard of, they were a little secretive about how they ran things. And it would be great. I feel like if everything was open sourced, we would move faster. And of course, that's not reality. But what are your thoughts on that?
My thoughts are I'm definitely kind of philosophically bent towards open source, growing the pie bigger for everyone, especially at this early stage in the industry. Cooperation is in everyone's benefit versus competition.
Everyone's being a pioneer at this point. Like, everyone's a pioneer.
Yeah, and the danger is competing away the value in the market. When you have 100 people all acting individually without concern for one another, you're going to be price gouging one another. You're going to drive the prices down to the point of non-sustainability. And that will forever keep the market from materializing to its full potential, right? So cooperation is how we can ensure that the market gets up on its feet and is able to grow. If you look back at pretty much every big industry, we even started the conversation about, electricity, steel, these industries. They require a certain level of cooperation in the early days to get up and off the ground. And from there, you can build on that foundation in a more individualistic manner.
Well, so this industry, compared to the other ones you just mentioned, like electricity and steel, they either had a lot of money behind it, either government support or, we mentioned VC, venture capital, but you're not taking that approach. And I am highly impressed with the practicality of your path to make this commercially viable. And I definitely feel or have become a little more patient with the whole aquaponics industry, understanding it's people like you who are trying to set up a framework of actual sustainability. You're just one company. You're not asking for a bunch of money to be poured in because you have to test it on a small scale and figure it out. So can you kind of walk us through the evolution, how you're trying to take aquaponics to a replicatable model using the community?
Absolutely. We've been bootstrapped from day one. We used our own funds internally to develop our initial test system in me and Kieran, my co-founder's apartment in Boston, to our backyard system in Glastonbury, Connecticut. And then we took the revenue that we generated off that backyard system to build our first commercial system. And we took that revenue and we built it up step by step every single step of the way. And the facility we're in right now is bootstrap funded. Of course, we had partners here where I would be remiss to mention our research farm, which is segmented from our commercial farm, which was funded in partnership with the Department of Agriculture and the USDA to explore the variety of vertical farming techniques in aquaponics in an indoor setting. But other than that, we generated the revenue to create this farm, and we built this farm to accurately model essentially a micro commercial system capable of supporting all of the labor required to run it, as well as all the operational costs, the rent, the cost of goods sold, and all that. So this is not only a working farm, but it's our first pilot model of what these facilities can be like in the future. We've really put the bulk of our focus and energy into looking at the model as a whole. What does this industry look like 10 years from now as it develops? And how can we get there sooner rather than allowing it to happen on its own? How can we accelerate that process? So we started to really look at, okay, aquaponics as a commercial concern isn't there yet. It's not quite ready. That's our premise, right? So from there, we look at how do we get there? Well, we need to find growers who aren't doing it for commercial purposes, and that brings us to our hidden farmer groups. By working with them, we can, starting right now, generate food for our communities. We can generate the revenue we need as a for-profit business to continue our research and development. As we continue those sales with these hidden farmer groups, the industry as a whole begins to see larger volume of systems. The prices on components start to come down. The buying power of the industry goes up. And now commercial aquaponics is getting there. If you can lower the initial spend, you can get to break even much more quickly. In addition to that, we focus on the model and we focus on the underlying technologies. We spoke a little bit about quantifying aquaponics, and that is a major goal of ours here. We have a smart controlling unit. It includes sensors and controlling relays within our systems. So we're monitoring a wide variety of water and air quality at all times. The idea is to eventually build this system into our clients. Well, currently it's on, I think, about 90% of our clients' systems as well. So we're already aggregating data from a network of aquaponic farms.
And that's something I wanted to bring up earlier. I would imagine that if we look at this from an industry standpoint, the lack of standard data recording is a major hurdle.
It is an absolutely major hurdle. People, they get by doing colorimetric testing on the basics, ammonia, nitrate, pH. That's all well and good. If you're a commercial producer, at a certain scale, that's sort of like using QuickBooks for a multi-million-dollar business. You need to get more deep. For the commercial industry to get to where it needs to be, we need industry-grade sensor controller systems. We need to have those quote-unquote recipes locked in so that there's a certain amount of reliability in the system. And if you can build in these smart tech systems like we're working on here at Trifecta, you can actually de-risk these ventures so that the investment up front becomes much more affordable. And just like lowering prices on equipment, lowering the cost of capital is another major barrier to the industry growing.
I think taking out the emotional component and putting in that scientific, that's one thing I really like about the work that Horde America does. There's so much time and effort that they spend in just lighting.
Yeah.
And we're looking at lights and air. You said air quality and temperatures, and then the water quality. There's so much to measure, so much to record.
I mean, we said it before, but like, this industry is an ecosystem, and there's room for a wide variety of players providing a huge abundance of different types of value to the ecosystem. And there's specialists who are going a mile deep on lighting, for example. There's more broadly applicable organizations that are providing kind of a generalized information set, like the FAO at the UN has a really nice standard guide for aquaponics, but it doesn't go too deep. And as the industry grows, this ecosystem will become more robust and more diverse, and we'll see all sorts of specialists crop up, and both specialists and generalists. That's to be expected in any new industry. We're already seeing it in aquaponics. To touch on the emotional thing, I do want to say, like, I don't come from a business background. Even hearing me say these things is very alien.
You say them very well.
I appreciate it. I went to school for Latin and philosophy. I got into this business because I philosophically believed in it. I saw the vision of the future that I think we all share, like a more food secure future. Kieran and I, we jumped in with both feet, not because we had a specific business plan worked out, but because we knew this was part of the future, and we believed in it, and we felt it in our gut. And the emotion is what brought us into the industry. And then can only go so many years without a salary doing this work before you say, okay, what is the business here? How do we make this work? And that's kind of been our growth process.
Well, I must say, I mean, we've known each other a couple of years now. You've always had the head on your shoulders to know that you had to make it a business. And if an industry this young is going to have any type of leadership, I'm glad to be sitting in this room with you.
Oh, man. Our listeners, I'm blushing right now, but I really appreciate it, and I feel the same way.
So what would you say to someone maybe even 15 years old, 25 years old, that agrees with you about the future of aquaponics? And how would you recommend they start at the most practical level if they want a career or a job later? And
I got started on YouTube. I didn't see or touch an aquaponics system until I had built one based off of YouTube. Mm-hmm. These types of resources have grown substantially since I got into it in 2011. I highly recommend people just start Googling and YouTube, searching on YouTube. There are certainly training courses out there. Many of them are world class, and many aren't. So you need to give yourself enough base information so you can be discerning as you look for higher education in the space.
How would you go about vetting?
I think the key thing is, have they done it themselves, or have, and I mean to cast no aspersions here because I see a value to this, but if you're being educated by someone who has not accomplished what they're teaching you how to do, that should be a red flag. There's nothing wrong with trying and failing, but there is, I personally believe, something a little fishy about not trying at all and then trying to teach someone.
Nice pun.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, so for me, I first started aquaponics by building a little system at home, and I think that you have to do that. I've seen a lot of big pie in the sky thinking people want to do these world-changing projects with aquaponics, yet they don't have a system in their backyard.
Yeah.
And so I feel like if you have an interest in this, the first thing to do, like you said, go on YouTube, check out a bunch of videos, build the smallest thing if that's what it takes. But you gotta really, aquaponics, there's you have to be in tune to it. You get that feel for how that works, and that just takes time, and you can't just jump into it.
You can't fake experience. Aquaponics is incredibly experiential. You get to know the sound of your system, and that will oftentimes be your first alert to something being wrong. You get to know the smell of your farm, and if it smells different, something's up. You get to use a wider variety of your senses than you might normally, which I find to be very fun. One thing I think that aquaponics has going for it, well, it's simultaneously one of its biggest pros and its biggest cons right now. It is incredibly exciting. It is easy as pie to get people super stoked on it. You can you can easily get an adult or a young child to understand the concept very quickly, and they say, why isn't it working this way already? So that is awesome. You can just breeze right into someone's mind that way because it makes sense naturally. That excitement generates a ton of interest from a wide variety of people. That interest can, one, be exploited by bad actors who understand this is a new industry and therefore a gold mine filled with people who don't know what they're buying into. And the other thing is that you also have essentially people that don't know what they're talking about speaking as if they do, because they're extremely excited and sometimes forceful with their opinions in a way I don't necessarily agree with, given a lack
long term, it's going to damage the industry.
Exactly. Exactly. So, and again, we've said it before, this is common at the start of any industry. You're going to have snake oil and you're going to have real value production. And it's about educating yourself to separate the milk from the water here and understand the difference.
Well, and that brings us to something I wanted to talk about. Anytime I've ever seen a forum and aquaponics gets brought up and somebody shits all over it because, well, there's an educational component. That's how they're making their money. So let's get into why it's okay to have an educational component to your farm.
I love this question. We get it all the time because we have such a diverse, set of revenue streams. Aquaponics farmers understand ecosystems. Ecosystems, we said it before on this very podcast, are a wide variety of players interacting together, providing value to one another. I would recommend people look at your business model that way. If you're relying on a single stream of revenue, being your crops, you are not only putting yourself at risk, you are completely putting all your eggs in a single basket, but you're also, I believe, potentially doing the industry a disservice. Right now, what we need is well-educated people ready to do work in this industry if we want it to grow. And education is the first step to workforce development. And without an active workforce, the industry simply can't grow. It's a major bottleneck. So I applaud people who have the experience that are educating people. And like we were just saying, if you're not necessarily farming right now, but you're educating, I certainly hope you have the experience to back that up, because otherwise you're actually hurting the industry. And in more ways than one, you're wasting people's money and time. You're potentially damaging their interest in the industry in general. Mm-hmm. And by being
that could potentially be backers and VCs and things like this.
Absolutely. Every industry has that big excitement at the front end, and then someone takes advantage of it and that excitement dips, and now you're below where you started, where people not only don't want to do it, but they don't want to talk to you because you're a part of this thing. And that is, I think, one of the biggest things, existential risks that the industry faces. Basically, if someone really pulls a scam on people, how are they going to trust the people that are true out there?
And it is okay to speak with authority if you have something in practice.
Absolutely.
Agritourism is a great draw, not only for interest, but for extra revenue to the farm. Mm-hmm. If you look at my own farm operation, my commercial kitchen and food truck is just as important as the crops. So am I a farmer? Am I a culinary? Well, either way, I have a business that works and we can employ people.
You're running an ecosystem. And I personally believe that is a more healthy and efficient and effective way to think of the business model in general, because your business does not operate in isolation. It operates in conjunction with all of the other organizations that it touches and all the ones that surround it in your location.
Well, and similar to your research here, our research is right now the food truck, where if we go out and have a bad weekend, it doesn't matter, because the other components kind of help fund that culinary research into our own thing. And when that takes off, or we find something that works, well, you know me, we're going to do something else. So, we'll throw something else on that fire. But
you're perfectly describing evolution in an ecosystem. The abundance provided by a healthy ecosystem allows for diversity to develop and evolution to occur. And some things work and some things don't. And the things that work continue onwards. The things that don't, stop.
If you're not trying things, you're not going to know what can potentially work, and you're just going to be stagnant in the ideas you're currently doing.
And stagnation leads to decline because you are not aware of the market changes. You are not aware of changing scenarios, and you stay steady state. but the world changes around you. You need to be constantly developing. When we were first essentially educating ourselves on how to be business owners, in addition to educating ourselves on being farmers, we had no background in either of these things. One of the best tips I had ever received was around this concept of customer discovery. Basically, the way it was put to me was a simple sentence: this is how you build a business. Step 1, ask people what they want. Step 2, give them what they want that they told you. Step 3, profit. If you constantly are querying your customer base about exactly what they want, then you can just simply provide it to them. And that's providing value. Providing value is what gets you paid. So that, I think, is a simple kind of set of rules that can always be applied. So in your case with your food truck, you can go out and say, you are actually getting face-to-face interaction all day long with every single customer, and you can query them as you go, and you can just kind of mix customer discovery in as you go.
And so let me tell you how we pull some of this data without them even being totally aware of it.
Mm-hmm.
So when you walk up to the truck, it's you have a piece of paper on the clipboard that's on a basket next to the order window. So you circle what you want. Well, at the end of the day, we have all these tally cards where we can go, okay, only 2 people ordered mushrooms, so we're going to drop mushrooms. Or we always, on every single one, people order peppers. You know, so that has dictated our offerings for the different things that we have, because we have all this paper data left over. So it's, we may not be measuring the air quality of the truck around, but we are measuring people's preferences when it comes to, we give you a selection, and now we get to narrow it down, and now we get to add something else, and how does that go? And I'll tell you, we're a local farm, and we're not growing avocados, but we damn sure better have avocados on there, because that's what people want. So
I bet.
If we're able to sell out everything that we grow, and we have to buy something from another farmer along the lines, I am completely okay with that.
And that's the same thing with what you're doing. This is a process. When we have this farm to food truck concept, we're not growing everything that comes out of the food truck, because what we're trying to do is figure out how this works so other people can do it and then improve on it and improve on it. And we'll get to the point where we're getting salt from the Himalayas, but that's about it.
If you're making better choices for people and offering that to them, like all of our salad dressing is made from scratch in our commercial kitchen, well, who else can say that? If we're using the very best ingredients we can get, the salad's a little expensive, but buying like badass pure olive oil is not cheap.
Yeah,
So,
and you pay for value, right? That's the thing. You provide people value, they pay you for it. People value local. People value supporting their local businesses more and more every year. People value really good, high-quality ingredients. And they value the ability to kind of get exactly what they want. So, there's a reason you can charge those premium prices, because you're giving all that value to your customers, in addition to them, eating the salad in general.
and we make it easy for them to buy. It's done for them.
Yeah.
Yes, we take credit cards. Yes, you can do it over your computer. We're not hard to find. We bring the farm to you when you don't have to come out and see us, kind of thing. So there's a lot of things that can go into all kinds of business models.
Yeah, and I have a short anecdote that I think kind of describes this. This is from our early days at the farmers market, from our micro commercial system. So we were selling essentially greens constantly, and then a rotating variety of fruits and florals, and that would just kind of change based on what we had that week. And we sold them all separately. So you could buy your head of lettuce, your tomatoes, your peppers, whatever, your nasturtiums. We're doing okay. Then we said, okay, well, we're watching our customers throughout as they walk through the farmer's market. They're buying lettuce here, they're buying tomatoes over there, they're buying peppers over there, and we're asking, what are you going to do with this? Oh, we're going to make a salad. That's why you buy lettuce, you can make a salad. So the next week, we just put all of our same items in bags. So we brought the same exact stuff, the same amount, put it in a bag, and called it a salad pack. We tacked on a couple extra bucks on top of what we were already charging just to see, and we sold out. This was, I think, our first time selling out, to be honest, because our personal farmers market was not well attended. That being said, we were charging more. We were charging almost 1.5 times our closest competitor, maybe even higher. People would bypass our competitors selling cheaper produce to come get the convenience of the salad pack. And that spoke so loudly to us. People buy convenience oftentimes more than anything else. They're buying convenience. And
Thank you for saying it. We've been pushing that message so hard. It's just the truth. I mean,
it is.
Convenience number one, local, sustainable, second and third.
Mm-hmm. And convenience, I found, is so far ahead that they can be die-hard, bleeding heart for your cause. And if it's really annoying for them to get your stuff, they're going to say, sorry, I just can't make it work. And I'll do anything I can to support you, but I can't, drive an extra 30 minutes to go get my salad. And I totally get it.
Yeah.
We've built our entire society around that. So I don't see us breaking that pattern by ourselves.
Yeah.
So it's up to all of these farmers to figure out the smoothest way to get people their food. It should be just as effortless as a one-click purchase on Amazon or something.
You have got a lot of press. You have a lot of visitors.
Mm-hmm.
You have a lot of politicians.
Yeah.
Coming through here, and I would imagine that's directing some policy change. So in regards to getting exposure, what has the press, what is the media, what has your acceptance, and frankly, the ability to be interviewed done for your company?
A wide variety of things. I think this is a pretty broad question that I like. Where do I start?
Let me break it down. So from a farmer's perspective, what does the feel-good story on the local news? And we'll segment it out.
Got it.
So what has that done for your farm?
So, that one is simple. It brings awareness. We're speaking on all our social channels, but there's simply people that don't go there. A lot of people. And especially if you're targeting local, you can't assume it's all the people in your social because they're probably all over the world. Local feel-good stories, the kind of the stories on the local business kind of thing have been helpful in driving awareness, bringing in customers for our weekly harvest, which is our monthly subscription for salads. That it's been great for us, and that's from a farmer's perspective. It's also been great. We're really adamant about growing the industry and accelerating the pace at which it comes to fruition. Awareness is a key piece here. When we got started, no one knew what aquaponics was except for all the people at the Aquaponics Association conference. That was the first time I was able to ever, in 2012, that was the first time I could talk to anyone that was not my immediate close friend who knew what the word aquaponics was. Now, 5 years later, I'd say 60-70% of the people I talk to about it already know about it. So,
Well, last time I was in town, you remember my Uber driver had heard of you guys.
yeah, that's crazy.
That's cool.
So that's cool. And so anything we can do to raise the awareness of the industry in general is something we try to do. I love this podcast for that purpose. And if it has a tangential benefit for our company, then that's also obviously very good.
From a policy standpoint and a political standpoint, you have had politicians come in, use your place as a platform.
Mm-hmm.
What's come out of that? Obviously you're open to it, or else they wouldn't have been here. But these obviously are people that align with your values.
Well, what I would say is that what we're doing is a bipartisan issue. Everyone needs to eat. Everyone can support food security. Everyone can support new jobs in their community. And that's what local food is. I have never encountered someone who has actually been against this kind of thing, which is, I think, for most business owners, that would be amazing to hear. So what I would say is what we're interested in is working with the government to figure out how to integrate this kind of industry into the process so that it doesn't get excluded and so it doesn't continue to be forgotten when the farm bills come out. Like we were speaking when we did a tour of the farm before the show here in Connecticut, and I'm sure in many states, there's subsidies from the electric company to swap from energy inefficient products to energy efficient products. We were able to get a subsidy on our LED lighting system that honestly made the farm fundable from a bootstrap perspective. It was a massive piece of the initial investment. And it's those types of subsidies that the more traditional farms take for granted, where they're guaranteed money even if their farm doesn't produce. Like, that is the kind of protection that the aquaponic and urban farming industry in general, which when we're talking policy, we talk urban farming, not just aquaponics, and how urban farming needs to be worked into the system at this point. It is not a frou-frou dream of an idea. It's happening, and the longer we avoid putting it in the farm bill, the longer we push off the industry. We really take, and more so recently, we're remembering our voice as a member of America and a democracy, and remembering that if we don't speak up, then someone else is gonna, and they're gonna be able to write the rules for us. So what we're doing now is bringing awareness to the issue with our politicians. We're lucky enough where Senator Murphy, who's one of our state senators, is on the Farm Bill Appropriations Committee. So he actually has some major pull on this kind of thing, or at least, the kind of voice that gets listened to here. So he's been very welcoming as far as hearing what we have to say and how he can help benefit the industry, not just in Connecticut, which is the cool part. This would benefit the entire industry nationwide. We really try not to play partisan politics. I'm not here to get caught in the middle of those two teams. I'm here to talk about what's best for our nation and our people, and again, not just our nation, but I live in America, so I'm working on this one.
And kudos to you, because Connecticut being a small state, you probably have a little more access to the senator than most other people, and he's on that committee. That's influence. I mean, that's huge. The fact that you took those steps and said you welcome the politicians, you're taking a much longer term, higher minded approach, and that's a service to the whole industry.
I appreciate it. I think anyone can get into this. I think we as a country in general are waking up and remembering our voice as in a democracy and how we can participate, and we don't need to sit there floating idly by as life passes us. Yeah, I really think it's a critical piece to making the industry take flight, and that's kind of my real impetus to getting in there.
So often on this show we ask people to think bigger, and this is part of what we're trying to make everybody aware of. Thinking beyond your own farm for the good of the entire industry or an industry segment. I think you give a solid leadership role without being that pain in the ass, whiny person in the corner there. Well, he's just a crazy person. You've come to this and approached it very logically. Of course, there's passion behind it, but it's not that hysterical passion that turns people off. So I appreciate the leadership, and I hope other people use that as an example to use their own farms as a platform to get by. I mean, there's so much more than just farming that we have on the line, which is why we're here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So give us one gigantic mistake that you made that you don't regret because it was a learning opportunity.
I like that question better than what's your best failure.
Yeah. No, I mean, because when you make it fucking hurts. I mean, it's hard.
Mm-hmm.
I have one in mind. I hesitate to call it a mistake, but I also could. It's a perfect word to describe it. So when we founded the company, we were at the time Fresh Farm Aquaponics, and it was Kieran and I and two of our very close and dear friends. Even from day one, people are like, don't start a business with your friends. Don't do it. Don't do it. All the time. To our faces amongst each other. It's like, come on, give us a shot here. But, it turns out most people were correct. And for a variety of reasons, two of our partners fell away from the project. And totally, it was kind of a mix of what we kind of just talked about on that little aside. Some people realized entrepreneur life isn't for them. Being able to rely on a paycheck is very important, and people who value that are totally in their right to do so. And an entrepreneur's life, given that we're starting a new business in a new industry in farming, we shouldn't expect to have salaries for a while. Mm-hmm. And we had to be okay with that if we were going to move forward. That's part of that drive we were talking about, the internal flame that comes from excitement and passion. If you don't have it, you're not going to get through the hard times. Mm-hmm. Totally legit. Getting through that process, the hard part was leading up to the actual breaks, because as friends, there became greater and greater tension as most of our interactions became about business.
And I'm sure there was outside forces at play as well.
Outside forces, I mean, having no salary, that's going to cause stress. And that stress is a base level, but everything else tacks on top of that. So what we found was things got to an untenable point where the tension was too great and we were not acting effectively as a business in many respects. And it came down to just having a solid talk, be like, what's going on? Here's what I'm seeing. And is this what you want to do? Because if it's not, that's not a problem. It's a problem being here and faking it, because you can't have that. Fakes in a startup. You got to have the real deal with the energy. And I say this recognizing the strength it takes for them to have gotten to the point they did, and also to bring up that this is a problem, because amongst friends that can be difficult, actually more so than doing it with someone you didn't know before. Mm-hmm. I say this is you asked why this was a good mistake or something that I took away from it, and on a very personal level, I essentially gained my friends back. They weren't my friends after a certain point. We didn't ever hang out together. Our social lives died, and we, to a certain degree, just didn't like being around each other because there's all this latent stress. And almost overnight, the friendship just went boop and turned right back on, and that was massive to me and illustrated the stressors of a business, and especially in a startup mode, these are things that are going to underlie every relationship that is in this business. Mm-hmm. And I'm glad I learned that early, and I'm still learning it to a degree. Kieran is still my co-founder, and our other two partners are my friends again. Mm-hmm. So we repeated it again, but now we have this kind of early experience that helps us inform how we operate today.
It's tough to have the tough conversations.
Yeah.
Right. And I've learned when we mess up as a company, I call whenever I can and mm-hmm. just own it 100%. Yeah. And sometimes you mess up and there's consequences, but other times people really appreciate that and they forgive you. Mm-hmm. And it seems like what happened here, you were a man, you had the conversation that needed to be had, and now it sounds like you're thankful because you learned a lot. They probably helped you a lot at the beginning get to where you're at now.
100%.
And everyone walks away with good experience and a good feeling about it.
Absolutely. We wouldn't be here today without them, just straight up. And at the same time, I see them 1 to 2 times a week. We play D&D together. So the friendship has grown rather than diminished because of this. And it's great. That's my convoluted story for anyone looking to start a business with their friends, whether it's a net positive or negative, I don't know, but it's working out.
And, Bootstrap Farmer started within my family, and it's, Nick's the only non-family member. And, I can see there's risks, but it's been good so far because we're all good at very different things. That's also very crucial. So it's like, hey, you guys just kind of own this stuff, handle it. I know you got it. And then the same on our side.
Well, and I think all of us know the shared risks. All of us are going to the same goal, and we're all willing to sacrifice quite a bit to get to the end goal. And even being the non-family member, I see that, and I certainly appreciate the work that everybody's doing and what you guys have done. So I wouldn't be here if I didn't believe in it. So that's a big deal.
It's awesome.
That was a good hour. So thank you so much for hosting us and letting us walk around and use the room. And
yeah, man, I had a blast, guys. Thank you so much for coming up here doing this. I always love to give a tour to kind of step back and remind myself this isn't everyone's daily experience, and to appreciate it a little more. I mean, you guys have more experience here than most of our guests, but it's always nice.
But still, there's always something to be learned with each farm visit. And I'm such a history nerd. That was the first question I asked him about the building, and look what it unveiled.
It's a pretty epic history.
Yeah, it's cool.
Mean, I loved it. Yeah.
Well, hey, thanks for having us. We will be back in September for the Aquaponics Association.
That's right. Aquaponics Association Conference this September in Hartford, Connecticut. very excited to be part of the party putting on the event here in our home state. You should definitely go on aquaponicsassociation.org and grab some tickets. I believe the early bird is open right now. Well, depending on when you listen to this.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, hopefully I'll see you there.
I was there last year. Had a good time.
Awesome. Yeah, me too. That was I was the chairman for a brief period during that conference, so that was a fun experience, if not a little turbulent. But I'm happy to say that the new board of the association is rock solid and doing epic things, and I'm very much excited for this year's conference.
So I'm going to give you my very non-affiliated, when you come to Hartford, dinner recommendations. To me, Hartford's like this hidden gem of a city when it comes to food.
100%, and I gotta send this to our economic development guys because they're gonna love that you said that from out of state. Hartford needs more.
And he's from Texas, and here he's going to give you a restaurant.
Oh, I'm going to give you some restaurant recommendations. So first and foremost, I'm going to give a shout out to Little River Restoratives,
Booyah.
where we had our meetup. It's a craft cocktail joint just outside of downtown Hartford. LRR is what you're looking for on social. On 20 is another historic, the Broiler Building, downtown Hartford. It's on the 20th floor. It's the old executive dining room for this place, and the chef is world class, on point, been everywhere. Cool dude.
Awesome. Great
Desserts. Like, go to eat, but save yourself for dessert and just order all of them, no matter what's going on. Third, homeboy Chris at Max Downtown.
Nice.
Bring a suit and tie if you come.
Oh,
It's one of those places.
I'm not going.
Dude,
It's so good.
All right,
Well, I will say any of the Max's restaurants you're going to do very well. And they have a variety of dress codes.
I mean, they got Max Burger.
Max Burger
Yeah, we can
awesome.
walk there right now. You're good.
Yeah.
But shout out to Chris. Thirdly, Firebox is a farm-to-table restaurant. They source within, I believe, 100 miles. I could be off on that, but it's also very good. Homemade ice cream.
I'd like to talk on Firebox and Billings Forge in general because it is an absolutely amazing project that needs to get more recognition. The Billings Forge project is kind of this really interesting ecosystem of interacting businesses. There's on-site residential housing for the
Is that the place behind it?
That whole facility is all connected through Billings Forge. And so they have the residents living there. They do workforce development in the kitchen, which is the name of a second restaurant, which is more of like a breakfast lunch cafe. And they do catering through the kitchen, and they train people from that actual apartment building to work there. And as they graduate that program, they move over to the Firebox, which is a very high-end dining experience. And so they can kind of work their way up through the food industry, and by the time they're done, they have experience in a wide variety of different restaurant models. Mm-hmm. And they've gone on to do awesome things. And also the studio at Hartford, or in Billings Forge, which is where they do like community events, and they have a year-round farmers market there. So a huge shout out to Billings Forge and the Firebox and all the people there. Yeah.
I think you guys are just angling for free drinks at this point.
Yeah, that's what we do. Two last recommendations. I've eaten my way through Hartford. I've fortunately got to spend a lot of time up here. Trumbull Kitchen, which is down the street from Max, also very good. Mm-hmm. And then we ate at a new spot last night, For Eat and Drink. Strange name. Great place. Yeah. Cocktails were on point. Mm-hmm. Dinner was great. Dessert was good. Anyway, I'm telling you that I love Hartford's eating food scene.
As long as we're still putting Hartford out there.
Yeah.
Actually, the same weekend as the Aquaponics Association conference, there is an epic beer festival, small state, great beer, which is happening basically a stone's throw away from the hotel for the conference. Okay. It's a super cool event. You pay one ticket and have infinite beer tastings from, I think it was like 40 or 50 different vendors last year. It's absurd.
There is a huge microbrew community here. Yeah.
And Massachusetts too, and New York. So everyone's coming out. I think it's all Connecticut breweries, if I remember correctly. Don't hold me to it. It's going to be an awesome weekend in general. So please come out. And I'd also be remiss to say, check out our website, trifectaecosystems.com. We're on social as Trifecta Ecosystems or Trifecta Eco on Twitter. Yeah, that's all I got.
All right, we're gonna let everybody get back to work. So thank you for your time again. We're out of here.
Yeah.
Talk to you guys later.
Later.
Hey, this is Brandon Youst. I'm the founder of Bootstrap Farmer, and I just want to thank you for listening to this podcast. We're doing this podcast for you because we feel it's important to get a lot of information out there, so I hope you're enjoying it. And if you are, I would love to have you leave a review on iTunes, Google Play, or Stitcher. It's what helps us get the word out to even more farmers out there. If you don't like what you're hearing, reach out to us. We would very much appreciate feedback. With that, I'm going to leave you with some random rab, who's actually my favorite artist. And that's the cool thing about putting out a podcast. It allows you to reach out to people who you wouldn't even dream of talking to. And the fact that my favorite artist gave us personal permission to use his music on the intro and the outro, it's a miniature dream come true. So just to show you one of the cool things that can happen when you put yourself out there a little bit. So I'm going to leave it there and enjoy it.